Speakeasy.
Yeah, there you go. Or like Sesame Street Speakeasy.
Yeah, that's a speakeasy for kids.
Yes. All right. That is a good way to introduce our first stream in physical space in a very long time.
Speakeasy for kids.
Mm-hmm. And we are live. Richard, welcome back to Dystopian Praha. How are you doing?
I'm very well, sir. It's good to be back in the city, which is snowy.
You sound so enthused.
Well, I have quite strong jet lag. Apologies about that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here, but I'm also existing in multiple realities at the same time right now due to the jet lag.
Of course, it hits right now before the stream. Yeah, when he came over, his phone literally died as he was at my door. So it rang twice and it just stopped. So I left him out in the freezing snow for 3 hours.
Yeah, I nearly died. It was beautiful.
Maybe that's why you're tired.
Maybe the hypothermia has exhausted me a little bit. That's happened before right outside your door. That's an narcotic kill zone for me.
I'll see what I can do. I'll call the Wi-Fi police.
Yeah, we'll do some spells or something.
Yeah, I didn't leave Richard for 3 hours, just letting you guys know as a disclaimer. But dude, I've been waiting till this stream to ask you how the fuck was traveling to 5 different countries in the span of 3 months, dude?
Well, everything. Well, that was crazy, and obviously it induced a lot of crazy dreams. But I was super cocky coming back. I was like, I'm returning to Europe. Europe is my home. Fa la 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 la. And then I got to Holland. And some very, very handsome young men on the Dutch immigration at Schiphol Airport told me with a smile and a wink and a jaunty demeanour that I was not allowed in.
Why would they say it with that demeanour?
Well, I was laughing because I was probably a little drunk after the gin and tonics on the flight. Very, very. I'd just done an 11-hour flight.
Okay.
It was in the wrong time zone, and they were like, "You can't enter." And I said, why? And they're like, well, because you've left the EU now, so you're not actually allowed to come in. And I was like, come on, guys. They're like,
that was your argument? Come on.
Come on. You know me.
That probably would work for you, too. Damn, that's a shame.
In the end, it did. So, yeah, we ended up having this bizarre conversation where nobody could really tell me what the rules were, but they knew I couldn't leave the airport.
Wow.
So they had security escort me from passport control back into the airport, into a never-ending loop of travel. So another version of me is just traveling for eternity now.
You know, did I talk about this with you? I don't know. I remember coming across a thought where if you're having jet lag, it's almost as if your body is moving forward on the plane, traveling that quick, and then your soul and your psychology is just kind of delayed, and it just snaps back after a while.
It snaps back, but I think the metaphor continues, and sometimes because your soul and your body are not, your soul can move forward. So my soul had already left the airport, but my body was there with my passport in my hand, sweaty and gritty after. Because I'd come from LA, I'd come from West Hollywood, all the way through the air, through the magic tube, landed and been like, right, I'm finally back in Europe, this is my home, open the doors, the king is here. And they're like,
no.
So sorry, but you can't come into our country anymore because you've left the EU.
But let's get to what I really want to talk about. What's your real thoughts on California after being there?
Oh dear! I remember in 2017, my life in America made me very sick. I did a tour in America. I did the major American cities, and then I did some work with a gentleman in Texas, and it was all too much. And then I got home, and because I was exhausted, I got herpes in my ear.
What?
It's shingles is in the herpes family. I got it in my ear, which is apparently quite dangerous. It's called Hunter-Ramsay syndrome, and you can lose your hearing and the use of your face. So I was very, very sick for a few months, and I do think that part of that, apart from I was coming out of a bad relationship, and I had my own personal issues, and just the exhaustion of going through these different American cities and trying to take all the information in. part of it was I do think was part of the malaise of being in America, and I found it quite a shocking experience leading to California. And so what did I notice? Racial division was extremely high. The different states of America were experienced by me subjectively as effectively different countries with little cohesion. The place felt like a camp, still feels like a camp. It feels like a project, an ongoing project that's not finished. And at times it feels like prison. When I was in California having the experience again, because I'm seeing it, it's like watching an old movie for the 5th time now. You see new things with new eyes. And I was even planning on the conversation that I was going to have with you. And I remember that we'd said about American prisons and how they become uniquely racially divided and tribalized, and how to European, when we watch those movies of American prisons, we're always like, well, it can't work like that. You can't just be like,
right.
Go and stand with those white people over with the tattoo, the swastika. Like they're your homies now. Yeah. Be like, well, because I would go in all naive and be like, well, actually, I speak Spanish. Perhaps I could hang around. No. That's not going to work. They're not going to embrace you. And so going back, it was reinforced again. I won't say it's a racially divided country. I'll say it's a country strangely obsessed with race.
Yeah,
and there is a point that I'll come to on that. But the big thing was in 2017. I felt like the country was ripe for civil war. And a friend of mine who is who I've been speaking to for years, he was like, please do a video on this. And I was like, I can't really do that. I don't think it's going to help having like some snotty English guy with my accent and everything saying this is what I think about America,
right,
with a mainly American audience. I wish actually I'd had the bravery to do it now, because there was a lot of stuff that I could just see and feel in the air that has come to fruition. And one of the places that I went to was Portland. Yeah. And I particularly if any of you followed my old Instagram before I deleted it, I wrote a long post about the extremely strange atmosphere in Portland, and if a place can get depressed, if a place can fall into a real crisis of its own identity, Portland was it. It was really strange. And so there was a number of things that I could see there, but coming away from it again, there is this sense of America as a performance rather than as a place. America is something you do, and it's a theatre. And the reason why the different ethnicities in the yard act that way in the prison yard is because they're being seen. And everybody still, I'm going to make this outrageous claim, everybody still thinks America is a movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And they act that way. They act like they're in a movie, and they play the roles of characters in a movie,
100%,
which are always reductive. Have to be reductive, because I don't want a character in a movie who's like real life complex. That's too much. I have an hour and a half. Reduce yourself. Be the white guy.
Yeah.
So go hang out with the white people and do white people shit and listen to white people music. Stop confusing me, or whatever your ethnic group is. So there's a pressure to reduce yourself to acting along certain lines there. There's nowhere else in the world I've ever been to that's like it.
Well, you just put into words that very thing I couldn't really put my finger on when I lived there. It felt like it was as if everyone had to live to some sort of character archetype movie trope as a character. And it's like, it's either you have people trying to play that extra of like, if you're a white guy, you play a white guy, or that everyone's competing to become a main character. So you have like those two opposing polarities of people pushing themselves in really like chaotic, traumatic lifestyles to become that main character, or you have people that want to be those NPCs of what your stereotype is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, you're right. I haven't really seen it all in my time through Europe. I mean, people kind of live out like Italians like food. You know what I mean? But It's not like, from what my experiences, it's like, you got to say that line better. You have to live up and deliver that line exactly like this. Otherwise, and if you go off script, people get really uncomfortable. They get really scared.
Yeah. So the to dovetail on that, the compassionate sort of point was it's not an accusation. The pressure to conform to a certain mode of being is incredibly strong there, as nowhere else. And so you said it. You said when you don't perform according to the script. Did you say people get uncomfortable or they get anxious?
Both.
Right.
Yeah.
So they get uncomfortable and they get anxious. But this to me is a bit like when we say people with borderline personality disorder have anxiety issues or abandonment anxiety. We say they have abandonment anxiety. And I already say, no, it's abandonment terror. So we need to understand people with borderline personality disorder are not anxious about being abandoned. They're fucking terrified of it. So when you say people are uncomfortable and anxious, it's that on steroids, cocaine, and LSD.
Yeah.
It's like you're inducing an existential crisis in some poor fucker in Whole Foods because you went off script.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's like the fucking Truman Show.
That's right.
People start going, oh, where's the cameras? What do we...
And they'll be like, okay, so Sally the other day decided, and they'll like try to
loop you back onto the script.
Obviously, I think this is the result of just maturing 20 years in the last year for me. But
this is old Pierre. I knew him when he was young.
Last year ago. Y'all know me. Y'all knew me back then too.
Do you remember silly Pierre?
Yeah.
Do you remember pre-existential crisis nihilism? Pierre, what happened? What happened to this guy? He was happy-go-lucky.
Life got me. I reserve it for my second channel.
Yeah.
Subscribe, no. But I think it's... Okay, this is from the result of maturing, for one thing. But I will say, when I lived in America, I followed that approach to communicating in life in that attention-seeking way. And looking back, it was way worse than it's ever been back then. And you feel this air in the environment that you will easily be forgotten if you don't do some outlandish shit or you don't follow a specific guideline of what a group does or and it's really heavy. It's imposing on you.
Yep.
And I was going through some crazy actions just for that unconscious desire, that fulfillment. And ever since I came out here, it declined over time, but heavily. Like nowadays, I'm really fine with chilling inside and not being seen.
Right.
I can go to the grocery store and whatever the hell else without fully getting dressed up, which is what I used to do back then.
Yes.
But now I'm just kind of like able to just chill a little more than I did back then. And I don't know what it was in the environment exactly that induced that so heavily. But obviously it's not purely the environment, but I can definitely see a change in how I've gone about life because of that.
Yeah, well, we all, as human beings, we respond to the environment. I was aware when I was there, when I was using the freeways, which is again a unique driving experience. I've driven in Asia. I've driven in many places across the world, and it's a unique driving experience being on the freeway and being overwhelmed on both sides by really, really big, loud vehicles.
Yeah.
In America, I like big, loud vehicles.
Yeah.
I was in a Dodge Charger this time.
Nice.
Beautiful. But there's these huge pickup trucks everywhere. They're spinning past you. And you just kind of feel, like you said, especially in Los Angeles, even with the lockdown, the traffic was still crazy there. You feel swallowed up. You feel completely invisible. So your neighbors in the south is Mexico, your neighbors to the north are Canadians, and I know what Canadians and Mexicans say. Your direct neighbors. Forget about what the rest of the world say about Americans, but your direct neighbors who are in regular contact with America, what they say about Americans. They're loud, they're brash, they say stupid things, they repeat slogans. And I'm like, but when you're there, that makes the most sense to do that, because how are you going to hear me? How are you going to see me? I'm competing with 330 million people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not just one little thing. It's the conglomeration of giant gray freeways that span collectively 12 lanes. That's huge. You won't see that out here. That's huge. It's all gray. Everyone's in similar cars. You never see faces. So unconsciously that signals to you that you're part of the camouflage.
Yeah.
Every house is like a mile away from the next.
Yeah.
Every Starbucks looks the same to the next street.
Yeah.
Every person is louder than the last person.
Yeah.
And then you put all of those combinations together with the corporate advertising and the corporations, the top 5 that rule the entire place.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those stack up to give you that unconscious signal that like you're just a number, just an ant. Like you're just an ant in compared to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Where out here everything's a bit more compacted. There is noticeable landmarks, like that's the castle right there. That's the Charles Bridge right here.
Yeah.
You know your place exactly just by walking and taking a tram somewhere. It doesn't turn into just a whole row of gray blocks for kilometers on end.
So you said you know your place, and one of the reasons why I was laughing when I was dealing with the handsome Dutchman of immigration, they're all in incredible shape. I mean, if they nearly
you get his number.
They nearly turned. It was multiple. I was like, are any of you ugly? Can I get one ugly dude? They're all like under the age of 30.
They're tall as fuck too.
Tall, ripped, wearing really tight shirts. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like a little strip show when you go into Amsterdam.
Half the chat's like, I'm booking my flight to Amsterdam.
Yeah, right. And so one of the reasons why I was laughing as I'm talking to these guys is you said know your place, and then I have to be careful. And I noticed that these people feel very, very grounded.
Right.
And I've spent a lot of time with people who don't feel grounded. And that, carefully treading, even in the Caribbean, there isn't this sense of ease with your place and the land. But if you're Dutch, you speak Dutch, you live Dutch, you eat Dutch, you watch Dutch, you are Dutch. You don't need to scream, I'm Dutch, I'm Dutch.
Yeah.
But if you're American, you need to scream that you're American. I'm American, America, yay.
Yeah, right.
If you're Dutch, you don't need to do that. If you're Czech, you don't need to do that. So I'm like hungover, sort of dissociated. I'm looking at them, and one part of me is going, I can't get into the country, so I can't go anywhere. This is a major inconvenience. And the other side of my brain is going, isn't it fascinating that they're so clearly comfortable with who they are and in the land, and they know people, their history, and they're connected, you see, with their culture. And I'm like, stop for a second. Right. This is a real security is now leading you. That's never happened in my life. Like, the security team is leading you back into the prison of the airport, where there's the last place I wanted to be.
Right.
I wanted to go take a shower and go to the hotel. So there is this sense of being connected with the land. The reason why I said you've got to be careful with this is because this is the type of thing that different fascist movements and communist movements have said.
If you take that to the wrong direction, it could lead to the nationalism, like the 100%. Extreme nationalism.
100%. But I remember speaking to a lady from Macedonia who was talking about her roots being in Macedonia. And you get a lot of this in the Balkans. Like Serbs will feel they're connected to Bosnians, Bosnia, and it's like the Spanish have a saying, sangre y tierra, which is blood and earth. They're like in the earth. And I'm always a bit jealous of that kind of nationalism because I've never really felt it. I'm a bit of a gypsy.
Yeah.
I do feel connected to Europe, but I don't feel connected to the UK as such.
Sure.
But yeah, some of these movements have said like, well, how, if you keep going along this way and you're like, well, people are better and more comfortable in their homeland, then how far away how many steps away do you start to go, well, everybody should just go home then? Everybody needs to go back to where they came from.
Exactly.
That would be the next step along.
So to give some further context so it doesn't get into murky waters, it's like I'm in the same page where I'm a gypsy in a certain sense too. You know, I don't exactly belong to a specific place, but there's something about being in a place where there are cultural foundations and a tangible root that's not based on corporate money only. And I think when I lived in California, there wasn't that foundation that just wasn't based purely on advertising, on just like some magic, you know? And it's a heavily competitive environment too, so everyone's out against each other on top of that. I mean, I can talk about this for fucking hours, but you know, I wanted to tell you, just the other day for the New Year's, I talked to my mom and she told me some stuff that was going on when she was renting out her house. She was having roommates, or how do you what's the correct terminology? She was renting out the house that she was living in to just people that
lodges, or were you saying English lodges?
lodges? That's not it. But whatever.
When you rent out your rooms?
Rent out the rooms, but
Right.
they live in the same place, right? And I'm not even joking. The only 5 people that would come through, whether they're couples or singles, they all had some deep trauma. One was a girlfriend and boyfriend. Girlfriend got pregnant, and it was a domestic abuse situation. Police were called multiple times. Another one was a girlfriend and a boyfriend. The girl went to prison, came back, and brought home a girl from prison, and then lived with all together. So girlfriend, boyfriend, and the criminal girl,
The new girl.
the new girl, and they were blazing it fat, toking it up from bongs and joints, just in the thing. My parents were like, "What the fuck are y'all doing?"
Yeah.
And then another one was a single lady who was going through psychosis,
Yeah.
like screaming at night, like to herself, and like going to the bathroom and just cussing out an invisible person. And like another person got a DUI. It just like the trauma list just goes on and on and on. And I'm like, and by the way, they're all around the same age group as me. So in the conversation, I was like, "Hey, Mom, does that bring a little perspective of the environment that I was surrounded by?"
Yeah.
You know, and because my mom and dad, they're just hanging around their own same age group and really closed off little bubble, and they never really saw this stuff. So as they're renting out this place, they're getting a peek into what it's like to live as a millennial in Southern California, and
Yeah.
there's something deeply troubling
Yeah.
about that area specifically and the mental occurrences there. I don't know what's going on.
Again, I'd hit that compassion button and just say, I really feel like this time around, I just walked away, a similar sort of thing. Like, I really noticed the mental health issues.
Right. You posted an Instagram story of you walking through Venice and there was tents everywhere. Yeah, tell me about that, dude.
Venice was like the Star Wars bar writ large. And it actually, the vibe was pretty, it was positive. I quite liked Venice Beach. I thought it was, I got
I
into
loved
it.
before the whole thing happened. Like,
But you can see Venice Beach is like a peak example of what's happening generally, where mental health is like it's hit the streets.
Yeah.
Like, people are
Yeah.
openly not just depressed but psychotic.
Right.
Very, very, very sick people.
how many people did you see scream at themselves? There was quite a bit when I was
in
there.
the whole time I was in America, which was probably in the end was a total of like just over 2 weeks, maybe 16 or 17 days. Definitely upward of 15 people. Definitely upward of 15 people who were standing there screaming at themselves or hitting themselves. I saw a guy in Los Angeles on the side of the freeway, nowhere near civilization, like far away on the freeway, in a fight with himself, doing like the Fight Club thing. Maybe 22, 23 years old, just stripped down to his underwear. They had a beanie on, which was good of him, and he was like in a full MMA bout with himself. It's drugs, obviously, but we shouldn't write these things off as just, oh well, they're just drug addicts. Well, how do you become a drug addict like
Right.
that without pre-existing mental health issues? I'm so sorry. Can I borrow a black vest from you? I'm having a real sweat problem here.
Yes, I also have to urinate. So if you can continue with your explanation.
Can you dig me out a black vest?
Yes, I will get it right now. But go ahead and explain further
I
about
will.
this craziness.
Okay. You go pee.
Yeah.
Pierre gon' pee. He gon' pee. Let's listen.
Stupid.
So I saw.
Please don't rip this with your massive biceps.
Thanks. I saw an awful lot more mental health stuff than I'd noticed in previous visits, and just a general sense that a dissolution, a sense of things dissolving, and people rightfully panicking as they're dissolving. It kind of felt, to me it's always felt a bit temporary anyway. It's always felt a bit experimental. It's always felt a bit like a project that could go either way. And at this particular point in history, it's not over. I'm not saying it's worthless. I'm not saying it's not worth fighting for, but I would say the project or the experiment is not doing well, and it does feel like things are in a little bit of a state of entropy.
Does that work?
Yes, this might actually be hotter than the thing I've already got on, but I will
Do you
clean
just
this.
want like a black shirt instead? Or
The lightest thing you have that I can wear decently in public, because I'm extremely hot. My titty sweat is coming through.
I can't believe you're borrowing a shirt of mine.
If I wear that one, I'm just going to sweat more.
Okay, let me see.
Do you have a sort of a bra, a glittery brassiere?
I can try my best. Dude, I don't know if you're gonna fit in any of my clothes, man.
Probably not. It will all be destroyed. So the I can see as well why people are leaving California en masse. That sort of mass panic to get out. You can really see why. Where I spent most of my time was in North County, which is its own territory, but you know, I would imagine it's only a matter of time before this effect breaks through everywhere, where everywhere is starting to look similar to this, and you're gonna get this dissolution and entropic effect.
I'm literally like drying all of my tank tops,
Okay.
so you might have to try a shirt.
I'll try this shirt. I'll try this shirt.
What is this?
I hope I don't savage it.
Yeah, you're not gonna fit this one.
I'm gonna break the screen.
They just want you shirtless, man.
Yes, of course they do. Everybody does. Why wouldn't they?
As you can see, it's been a long time since me and Richard have seen each other, so that's why he's taking off his shirt right now. Anyways, so
Oh my god.
let's see what you guys are saying. Maybe I'll be able to buy a house in the suburbs for less than $1 million. Yeah, California is super expensive as well. I just made a video about covering more reasons why I left the place, but it's interesting to hear somebody as well-traveled, like Mr. Richard Grannon himself, talk about my hometown, because it confirms that I'm not as crazy as I expect myself. Does it work?
Oh yes.
Great. Hell yeah, man. Can you lower the temperature? I mean, we could open the window.
Oh please God, open
Yes.
the window.
Okay.
Thank you.
Man,
Wonderful.
has entertainment changed over the years? You wouldn't be able to get away with that with
Nobody's
talk shows.
perfecto.
Yeah, that was my friend's
yes.
band shirt.
I like
That
it.
fits you fine.
Yes.
Great.
Wonderful. Hello,
Now-
ladies and gentlemen.
Now you definitely look like a bodyguard. Awesome. Yeah, scoot this way a little bit more.
Rich is going through menopause, you cheeky bastard.
So okay, so California, right? It's good hearing. It's good hearing these things, because I thought I was going crazy there, but it really does confirm the fact of how important environment is and how much it really does affect your personal mental state.
Yeah, definitely. And environment obviously includes the people that you have around you. So if you have people around you who are neurotic and who are very anxious and very uncomfortable in their own skin day in, day out, then eventually it does rub off. I don't think I've switched on. Let me switch it on.
Okay.
This is it is switched on. It's
Okay.
powerful.
All right.
It does of course rub off. I don't think these problems are new. I think it's always been that way, and I don't have a solution for it. I just notice these things and I'm like, oh God, I can see there's stress here. I can see there's tension here. I can see it's like a performance, but when you're performing all the time, it's fucking exhausting.
Well, that's why actors go crazy. They always
Yeah.
have that middle-aged meltdown, or child
Yeah.
stars go through a freak out, because
Yeah.
you're playing another identity as a living.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, technically you can boil it down to academic terms. It's a temporary psychosis when you're acting.
Yes, yeah.
But
especially
we're
if you're
just
good,
used
if you're
to
good
it.
at it. If you're a good actor and you're winning the game, then you're very good at channeling your crazy.
Yeah, but think about that. Isn't that weird? Like, if you see a person that is schizophrenic or whatever, they have mental problems, but if you get paid for it and you can control it,
Yeah.
you're a famous actor and
Yes.
you deserve respect.
Yeah, and you're lauded for it. It is. I mean, just the fact that those are our stars. They're the stars of our age. What do? They impersonate other people, and they fulfill largely fairly narcissistic and extremely grandiose narratives that are our fantasies. So they're paid to jerk us off psychologically. They're psychological prostitutes, and they're our favorite fucking things. They're our most. We all know their names. We all know their faces. We're really, really pleased with them. And obviously, I went to Hollywood again against my will. Even went to the Hollywood sign this time. And you know the difference between what people think Hollywood is and the actual reality of Hollywood. I think it speaks to the core of the issue. We have this gap that's growing between fantasy and reality. For those of you who've not been, like the Walk of Fame, and not all of Hollywood, but certain parts of Hollywood, it's really rough. I think I've made this point before. Do you remember I said that I got stuck in Long Beach when I was 21? This time I got stuck in Crenshaw.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Because I ran out of fuel. I was driving
shit.
to Hollywood from Encinitas.
Yeah.
I'm in the Charger, which just guzzles gas. And I hit on without looking, because I'm, focusing on the freeway, obviously, kids, not using my phone. And I hit petrol station, and it was a hydrogen station. There's a hydrogen gas station in Crenshaw.
Okay.
So I had like no fuel left. I turned. I was like, fuck, it's hydrogen. Where am I? And I looked on the map. I was like, Crenshaw.
Nice.
Which is fine now.
Okay.
It's not. Boys in the Hood was set in Crenshaw.
Right.
And well, I say it's fine now. It's not like I lived there, but passing through, it was just a quiet residential area, or it looked like it.
Sure. Yeah, even places in Long Beach when I would go through are all right, but you take the wrong turn. That's the thing about places in America. Maybe most places, but from what I remember, you take the wrong left turn, and it's just you're on the worst block ever, and you don't even realize it.
How the fuck does that? You could do that in Los Angeles. You go,
Yeah.
hellhole,
Beverly
slightly
Hills.
okay, gorgeous place.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can literally walk up the road and rob these people.
Of course.
Why don't you just
Like
do that?
like the way to downtown LA with all the skyscrapers, and then West Hollywood's on the other side, you literally go through Skid Row. Because I remember the only places that I would actually check out when I lived in Los Angeles was maybe West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Venice Beach, and Little Tokyo. And Little Tokyo is like 3 blocks away from Skid Row. So you're driving through this tent city, just trying to get some mochi ice cream or like some nonsense, and it's just 1 block. But yeah, man, I think I thought I was, because I think the predominant narrative with mental health and stuff like that, it's places pure and only responsibility with what is only occurring in there, which you have the responsibility to work through with what you got, but as well as, damn, hearing you explain how you felt there, and then hearing the stories of the renters from my parents, and even my experience is like, the environment is probably at least half of what induces all of these things.
I think so. There's the famous Sicilian American psychology professor Zimbardo. I think he's Philip Zimbardo, and he's a New Yorker. He wrote a book called The Lucifer Effect, where he puts the case very convincingly that it's environments that create people's attitudes and their behavior. And obviously it's different state to state. I think we've made the point before. In California, for God knows what reason, you do see these psychoses, these neuroses writ large,
Right.
where perhaps you don't in other states. Even in New York, which you would expect to be a total nut house, but my experience actually of New York and of New Yorkers is actually a little bit more grounded, a bit more balanced. Some of the people that I'm encountering in California, they're in this fucking stratosphere. I feel like I need to get them down off the roof with a long broom. I'm like, come down here for a minute. It's okay. Reality's not that scary. Come back.
Yeah, there's something about the sun there. I think there's a layer in the atmosphere that filters the sun. It's an Instagram filter that circles right over Southern California. It doesn't give them the right kind of vitamin D.
Right.
You know, it transmutes it to something else. But yeah, you know, a joke that I would make just to cope there is like people, all they like to do around there is just look and stare at the sun. And they just fry their retinas. It's just like, because they do feel like they're floating somewhere. Right, it's like, where, I don't, and I'm like, what is going on? I don't know how to explain the situation.
Did you get to see the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction?
I didn't, man. Did you see it?
I saw it before I knew what it was. I was like, why are those stars like so close together? It's like, you know, you see in a science fiction movie, there's two moons or something. I was like, oh, fuck it, what the hell? Why is that there? And I was saying that to people, and they're like, oh, I don't know. And then it turns out Saturn-Jupiter thing, which was very, very pretty. I should close the loop on the Holland story.
Oh.
They eventually gave me back my passport, and they said, you mustn't leave the airport. You should leave now. And I said, well, what if I can't get a flight till tomorrow? And they said, oh, there's a hotel here. You can stay in the hotel in the airport. So I got my passport back and went, that's definitely what I'll do. So I took my passport, I collected my luggage, and I was like, nobody's watching me. And I slowly edged towards the taxi rank.
This is all hypothetical. You didn't really do that, but that's what you would have hypothetically done. I
don't know if they have the legal ability, like once they give me my passport back, to say, because they're only immigration, they're border patrol. I wasn't on the border then, I was on the road. Like, unless they call the police. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in Prague, by ignoring.
Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
Am I being detained?
Am I being detained?
What am I being arrested for?
I can't believe you were able to pull all that shit off. Like, I can't believe you did all of that in 3 months. Yeah, that's wild, man. Especially crazy. During this time, dude. Like, I don't know how you skirted by.
Yeah, and that's the last I'll ever be able to do it, because all the borders are shutting down hardstyle soon. This is nothing compared to what's coming, kids.
Yeah, man. I mean, how much has your perspective shifted, if at all, by doing all of that and seeing the progression of how things are going now?
I'm back to where I was at the beginning of the lockdown. You know, I was like full paranoia, neo-communism. They're going to take over money. The behavior of the governments globally is so strange. I can only conclude that that's what they're going for.
I mean,
the eradication of cash. To a new, not even, it won't even be a currency. It'll be a new system of trade with far more control and far less leakage.
Oh, to further send everybody into existential despair, I watched the video, I think yesterday, and it was covering the idea of how no one is going to own anything in the future. And the reason why is because we're going to do everything through rental payments. So if you want to own like a laundry machine, you want to own a place, or even you can rent out like vacuums and even iPhones, everything's going to be on a subscription basis of just renting and paying month by month in return, meaning that no one actually is going to end up possessing anything.
Good, because property is theft, comrade, and this is how we'll win the class war. Yo. Just like we did last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that. This time, comrades, it will work.
But it's a living sci-fi novel, and that's the dimly lit despair and light at the end of the tunnel. At least we get to live a cool movie.
We are living in a very, very cool period of history. So we can narcissistically jerk ourselves off. We got front row seats.
Crazy. It's fucking wild, man.
There's nothing like this in history. And even me saying like, it's going to be communism. I mean, it really isn't. It's going to be something that is.
It's never been done before.
It's never been done before. Yeah. So it's beyond human comprehension. So because of the leveling of it and the lack of property ownership and the totalitarianistic elements of it, the easiest thing to compare it to is communism, but it's not communism strictly. It'll be communism for the hoi polloi, the lumpen proletariat, us, but for the oligarchs, it will be, I suppose, like they'll live like the lords of medieval times.
All praise Bezos and Gates.
All praise Bezos and Gatos. They'll live like feudal lords, and we'll live like the peasant class of.
And so this is what my presumptions are to this new type of system that's not communism, but like a further evolved version. So this question goes of like, that is not going to happen. Who are we paying rent to, right? And I'm thinking, how would they go about it? Because everything has to be beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. So stimulus checks. If the government's paying everybody monthly income, and then you pay your rent with their monthly income, what's the difference of them just owning your fucking place? You know what I mean? It's
interesting that you focus on that as well, because when I'm trying to understand what people who think communism is a good idea want, and it's bloody hard work, I always come up with it is always a problem: money and police. Money and police. What are you going to do? So are we really not going to have currency? I mean, there's too many of us for that to be workable. And are we really not going to have police? And what have we seen this year? We've seen this move towards defunding and just dissolving the police completely.
Right.
And then there are these issues around ownership and digital currency.
So yeah, maybe it's not even so much the obliteration of currency, it's maneuvering it in such a way that it's almost as if it doesn't need to exist. But it's just the symbol is there, so you at least like know it's there.
Yes, there will be a currency. What there won't be, like right now, I like having paper money because I'm old fashioned like that. I like walking around with a wad of cash of whatever country I'm in, and then I use cards all the time and keep it because I'm weird. I just want to know that if you rob me, I can give you something because I am good socialist. So that will be gone. And it will be gone at the microcosmic level, at the macrocosmic level. Pierre won't be walking around with a ton of money in his bank account. Richard won't be walking around with cash in his pocket. Everything you have should be tied up back into the system, because if I'm an evil genius economist, it doesn't benefit me or the system for you to be holding onto cash that I can't see. Every single thing you have should be in the economy, moving somewhere. So it won't be a total eradication of money. We just won't be able to own money and own things the way we do now. That will be verboten in our future.
Yeah, considering that idea of like you're basically going to rent any possession that you decide on having, including your flat and stuff. And if you have the stimulus checks coming to pay for all of that, the stuff that you don't even fucking own, what does that sound like? You know what I mean? It's just one step that differentiates a potential other form of rule that I think we're all familiar of, but it just the symbolic nature of that still moving around just separates it enough.
Yeah, it would be.
Are you cold?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm a little cold.
It is cooler now. I'm very much enjoying it because I'm a lizard man.
You're the guest in the state-owned flat now. So
if we could stop you right before hypothermia sets in.
Yes.
So Zizek talks about capitalism with a human face. This would be communism with a fascist face.
Well, a capitalistic face, maybe? Or not so much anymore. Now it's just overt.
No, I mean, because I would argue, I think it's true to say that in capitalism, the individual can have a thing. That's what capitalism really stands for, is thingism. The thing is the individual, and the thing is primary. And we can't have that, which, I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day. I listened to his podcast. People think I hate Jordan Peterson. It's not red or blue, left or right. I have really deep criticisms of him, but I listen to him and I enjoy his work, and I'm glad he's back. And I do listen to his podcasts. I study them. He had one out recently, and he was talking about capitalism, but without saying it. He said the system of economy and governance that we have now goes one way, and nobody's ever found a solution to it. And the example he gave that even an idiot like me could understand, because I'm not good with mathematics and economics is not my bag. He says, when you play Monopoly, how's Monopoly won?
Right.
Well, eventually everybody gets poorer and poorer, and one person gets to keep everything. And he just made the point, like, that's just a built-in part of the game we're playing.
But I think one of the key points of where that comes from is also ties into other parts of nature. He brought in an analogy with musicians. It's like the top 10% of musicians get
Pareto's
noticed.
law, it's called.
Pareto's law. And that goes with things outside of anything that has to do with typical economics as well.
YouTube content creators.
Some
of us are better than others with connecting with our audience.
Oh, thanks, Richard. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Pierre. Very welcome indeed. And therefore, you win that game with likes and follows, and you would hope with financial remuneration as well.
Yeah.
But everybody can't win at the same level because, well, how? You'd have to force that.
And it's. Is this controversial to say that some people just like to work harder than others?
How fucking dare you?
I know. To some people.
It's not because there's no... Listen, Pierre, let me explain to you something, because you're speaking from the patriarchy. There's no such thing as individual will. There's only systems of domination and power. And if somebody has less than somebody else, that's because the person who has more stole it from them criminally. Not because that person worked harder. That doesn't exist. That's a myth created by this system of power that we're enslaved by. I do like to educate.
Thank you for educating me. I was thinking, like, because of this whole money situation, I've been looking at other forums and doing that Bitcoin research, which, I don't know, I'll think about it. Maybe dip my finger in it, just why not? But I was thinking, like, what objects or what things would actually hold value? Perhaps some silver and gold, but what are you going to do with a block of gold? You know what I mean? In a practical sense. And I was actually thinking the first thing was iPhones, smartphones. People are always wanting smartphones and iPhones, and I think that's one thing that'll actually maintain a bit of value.
An iPhone? Oh, you mean the tracking device that lets the government know exactly where you are, what you like, what you're doing, what you're wanking over, and what you're focused on every second of the day. Yes. They can have those.
Which further
let them fight over the best tracking devices.
Yes.
It's like fighting over in the slave camp, you fight over the best shackles, you want the biggest.
Which further proves the point. Right? So the thing that would have value are things that would actually benefit people that would want to surveil you even more too.
Right. Yeah, that's where you shift the value within the masses. You say, this is the thing that you should want, kids. This is what makes you cool.
Yeah.
Having money isn't cool. Having money is shit. Having money makes you a greedy capitalist pig, and they're all criminals and psychopaths, not hard-working folk. It's all theft.
So in your mind, if things did go that way, what would maintain value that you could actually trade for some sort of something?
Well, I mean, if you were trading outside of the system, it's worth noting that would make you a criminal according to the system, and if you got caught doing it, you could be switched off by the central bank.
Yeah, but if they didn't know, though.
If they didn't know. So on the black market, what would retain...
besides drugs and all that obvious shit.
Immediate pleasure of the body, I suppose. There would be retro status symbols, probably.
What's that?
Well, Rolexes.
Okay.
But they couldn't possibly maintain value, or luxury watches, or luxury cars. They would have, you could only own them and enjoy them not as a retro object to be enjoyed. You would only own them and enjoy them by enjoying them retroly.
Okay. What the hell are you saying? What is that?
If you had a lot, you would say you would give away what you had to show that you could, but there would be the sense of the shiny watch having value itself would be eradicated. You would be you'd be burning money. It's the same thing as going online and burning money and going, haha, I can burn money. It would be a defiant act, not so much I love the shiny thing. It would be, look what I can do is what people used to do with money. How cool is that? So you'd be doing it for social points. You wouldn't be doing it for anything else. And I do think we probably are moving slowly towards the what do they call it in China? The social credit score?
Yeah. I mean,
slowly.
Technically, the closest thing to that is just followers in general. How many likes and followers you have. That's social credit. That's literally, by definition, social credit.
Absolutely, and you can be punished. You can be cancelled, deplatformed, and whatever. So yeah, it is social credit. It is social credit. But if anybody has any ideas what items physical items to answer Pierre's question
Yeah,
would have value, please tell us.
We had like sugars, lighters, batteries, candles, land, water, hemp seeds.
Always makes me laugh when preppers go on about keeping gold. Like, put your money in gold. And I'm like, so in the apocalypse, when everybody's dead except for the last 5% of people, the fuck am I supposed to do with a bar of gold? I could beat an enemy to death with it. I could use it as a door jamb to keep the raping hordes out, maybe.
The gold works 2 or 3 steps above that stage of the zombie apocalypse. So 2 or 3 stages above zombie, and then below that is like, what are you gonna do with gold?
At a certain point, toilet paper must become, as we slide down that scale, toilet paper must have more value than gold. I remember they said in Sarajevo, there's a tour, well, there's multiple tours you can do in Sarajevo of the war, and they'll tell you what happened there. They said cigarettes.
Yeah, that was a prison thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would make sense. Maybe alcohol too. Alcohol, actually, that would be good because that doubles up as like an antiseptic too.
Which again is a prison thing. So we basically living it.
We are all living in prison. We can't leave our fucking place. So.
Hooch and ciggies. That's gonna be the thing.
Stuck in your place, working out with resistance bands and weights in a 1-bedroom studio, and just staring at one form of entertainment all day, with the state-owned everything.
People will probably have more sex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what else is there to do? But then you can get shamed for that too. So.
For having sex?
Covida.
Because you're meeting?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think the British government tried to ban it.
Or you have to wear masks.
And rightly they should. Stop rotting, you bloody perverts.
You have to wear a mask to flip.
Well, I had to anyway. There's no change for me. I can't come without the mask.
There's a zipper right here. God. No eye holes.
You can't have sex without a mask. I'm like, yes. Obvs. What deviant has sex without a mask on, you bloody weirdos? Put your mask on.
And that's what they pulled out of the TSA checkpoint. Where's your mask, sir? Okay.
Okay. Yes, it's a strange, brave new world that we'll be moving towards. Very strange.
So, but is it how much different is this state that you're in now compared to when it first hit? I'm like, I'm at the point of acceptance right now. I'm not reactive to it,
which shows that the strategy is working.
Yeah,
I remember. Well, oddly enough, I was shooting for David Icke when the lockdown happened.
Shit.
I was actually there working for David Icke, doing a series about propaganda and governmental control and how governments narcissistically abuse their people. And it was a 3-day shoot, and on day 2, the hard lockdown started. So it was a weird thing. So when it first happened, I was terrified, really, 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 very, very frightened. And now I just think, oh God, just get on with it then, for fuck's sake. Let me go back to the gym.
Yeah.
Take my money then, you pricks. Just fuck off.
Right.
Which shows that I've gone into submission. That's like learned helplessness. And because people will be saying, oh, aren't you going to protest? And I'm like, for what? For what? I worked with the British riot police for years. I know exactly what they're going to do, and they know exactly what they're going to do. It's like putting your hand inside of a well-oiled mouse trap.
If anything, technically, you've actually tried and have done more than most others, because you've already been in that world to see what it is, and you've done work against it too.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, in some ways. That's a nice. I'll tell myself that story. I like that story, Pierre. I've done more.
You're welcome.
More than most.
Well, I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Go to fucking Walmart with an anti-mask protest? Like, I mean, how many TikToks have you seen of that? And is that really doing anything?
There is something here, which is that if everybody said we're not doing this, for sure it would stop.
But that goes with anything. The world wouldn't fucking climate change or plastic in the ocean if everyone did it. That's like the worst argument,
dude. Which is like saying, it's basically the same as saying if things were different, then things would be different. Bravo.
If we all didn't exist, we wouldn't go through any of this.
What great, deep, philosophical fucking insight that is. Thanks, you 14-year-old dope. Things were different, they'd be different. Well done. Bravo, bravo. Please tell us more, wise one.
But that argument goes for every single thing. If everyone just did this, then
everything.
It goes with veganism, no fat, prawn, ocean, plastics in the ocean, whatever else, man.
Whatever we as human beings discuss, and this is where you were asking me about the Spartan Life Coach channel that talking about narcissism. Whether it's politics, psychology, philosophy, bloody grocery shopping, music, we are as humans blind to this factor called human nature. And it's like we talk about subjects as though we aren't a factor in the subject.
I know, right?
Cars and groceries don't exist without people. It's people that make these things happen. But we're like, oh, it's happening to me. Yeah. The conservatives are doing this to me. The liberals are... It's people. Yeah. It's just people. And guess what? You're a person.
Yeah, right.
Revelations. I'm just spewing them this evening.
No, yeah, for real, man. It's... I'm definitely at the point of submission, but... I'm doing what I can in the meantime, and it's like there isn't. What other option is there?
Apparently, you have a lot of protests here. The Czechs are protesting
really?
a lot.
They're protesting? Okay.
Rebelling.
Well, okay, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, and if it does work, then good on the Czech people and whoever else that is protesting. Maybe I should be doing a bit more. I don't know. Perhaps I'm a bit too nihilistic for these things, but
if I can figure out a thing to do, I'll tell you about it, and we'll give it a go. So yeah, 1,000 Czechs turned up with a coffin for Babiš outside of his house.
What?
Yeah,
dude, that's straight up like the defenestration days in Prague, man. There's a old medieval Czech pastime of throwing politicians out the castle window if they didn't like them. So
defenestration.
Guess we're getting back to our roots. That's that foundation, cultural foundation I was talking about, absolutely. Man.
Also, of all the countries I've been to in the last 3 months, this one's wearing the least masks.
Yeah.
Czech people are not walking around in freezing cold temperatures. They're distancing, but they're not. I'm not an anti-masker, and I'm not a person who's saying COVID isn't a real thing. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but we do have to still use science. And when it's freezing cold and you're not coughing and sneezing and you're walking up a cold road on your own, you don't have to wear a mask because the air isn't going to catch
so then
disease
here's the
from
counter argument that the big they will say is that the cases keep rising back up here every time they lessen the regulations. But actually, technically, we are in the stage 5 until January 22nd, and the cases like tripled or some crazy shit.
Which is the counter argument. Lockdowns do nothing. And if you look at the countries that have had really harsh lockdowns, what's the country in Southern America that's had...
LA.
LA's had brutal lockdowns.
Yeah.
I think it's Peru. Somebody will correct me in the comments. Had absolutely brutal draconian lockdown laws, and it made no difference whatsoever.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. I don't think I'm gonna publicly state or maybe publicly be involved in any way or be involved in defenestration or putting caskets in front of presidents. But also in America, I think Nancy Pelosi, you hear that name in political circles all the time. Somebody left a pig head in front of her garage and tagged her garage door.
Wow.
So it's going back to the medieval times, baby.
Well, we will for sure in 2021. We're going to see more civil unrest. I mean, you just can't. You can't do this to people and not expect them to push back. And I think even the most authoritarian voices that I've heard from, and friends of mine included, from day one are shifting. They're like, okay, this doesn't really seem to make an awful lot of sense. That's preempting the hateful comments here. My point from day one was never this isn't a real thing. I suspect that I had it. I think I got it February 1st when I was sedated and operated on in the hospital. I think I caught it. Is the response justified by the threat, or is it disproportionate to the threat? And I would say it seems to me to be disproportionate to the threat. And that's why I conclude
You know,
that this isn't about a biological issue, but an economic issue.
I keep my finger on the pulsing
Throbbing.
throbbing appendage
Damn.
of the cultural narrative. And I can say this bulbous appendage is telling me that collectively a lot of people are unconsciously becoming more skeptical, even if they will verbally say of the whatever idea that they think. Collectively, a lot of people are becoming more skeptical, whether they even realize it or not. And it sounds like I'm just going off some fucking woohoo shit, but from the amount of how convicted people were before on social media compared to now is very different. Very different.
Yeah, I think there's a strong case to be made for that. I've made the point here on Tentacle Crossing a number of times. I've yet to come across an official who didn't tell me to quarantine or didn't take my tracking location form without this sort of knowing smirk. All passport control, all immigration people, every country I've been to have been like, we have to. It's not me. I don't believe this, but this is what. And that's the Slavoj Žižek with Santa Claus thing. The kids don't believe Santa Claus is real. The parents aren't insane. They know they're the ones leaving the present. So who are we doing it for? We do it for the other. But nobody wants to be the first one to say, I don't think this makes much sense right now, because, well, as I said in the beginning, I've not seen from my government historically this huge amount of care for the sick and the elderly, and we can't let grandma die. I just didn't get that sort of impression from them. But now it's priority number bloody one. Don't let the sick or the elderly die. And I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying let the sick and the elderly die. I'm saying I didn't see them do that before now. The attitude shift is a little odd to me. A little suddenly they really care. The first person to receive the vaccine in the United Kingdom, this was shown on television, was an 83-year-old man on a dialysis machine.
At least it's getting out there, right, Richard?
At least it's getting out there, Pierre.
And of course, I'm sure you saw, I sent it to you, the vaccination demonstration on the nurse.
Oh, that's you vaccinated then.
Could you imagine if that's what stopped COVID?
Yeah. Everybody just walked. It's like kids in a playground playing doctors and nurses. We all just went up to each other going, vaccinate. No, you didn't get me. I vaccinate you. You didn't get me.
I think you need to fill it up with something first.
Doesn't it need to have something in the syringe?
Yeah. Okay. I can't look it up now, but if you guys want to see what we're talking about, look up empty syringe news. There was footage on some local news station about a nurse that works for this hospital that was publicly getting vaccinated. There was 5 nurses, and one of them, the nurse literally has an empty syringe with the plunger pushed all the way down. So it's not even like pretend up. It's all the way down, and they just stabs the dude in the arm.
Did you see the comment that said, I just watched someone get stabbed?
Yes. That's literally it. You just literally...
I'm not a medical professional, but I have delivered many injections whilst in the security industry and taken them. And I'm pretty sure you need 2 things. Content in the syringe and then to depress the plunger. Neither things were present. Neither.
Listen. A lot of people could take what I'm bringing up in this topic out of context or steer it in their own way. I'm not even trying to say I'm completely anti-vax or pro-vax or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that I am not going to get my fucking arm stabbed by some idiot that just wants to press a needle through my arm for no reason. If you are pro-vax or anti-vax, if it's a working vaccine, sure, that's great. But if that's the type of people that would be injecting us, considering that's on TV, what the fuck happens behind closed doors? That's on public news, dude. That's like, what the fuck is that? That's a big mistake, regardless of what your viewpoint is. You're supposed to have a nurse that knows what the fuck they're doing. I'm pretty sure in the first 3 classes of nursing school, you should know that you can't just stab somebody with a needle for no reason.
Well, there's the placebo effect and voodoo, of course. If you believe.
Imagine you start levitating, like just.
In order to get into Holland, I had to present with a negative PCR, and one reason or another, I ran out of time, so I had to pay like a premium to get a really quick test done. So I went to Beverly Hills, right off Rodeo Drive. There's an underground car park you can drive into.
Okay.
And give them a lot of money, and they will give you a test. And it was to be a nasal swab, which I've heard. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the X-ray. It's supposed to go down into your throat. So this lady in the hazmat sort of overalls came up to me and said, "I'm going to do the nasal swab," and I was like, "Okay, you can take this." And she just dibbled one nostril. Then she dibbled the other. She might have gone half an inch in.
You want it deeper, huh?
I wanted it all the way in, sir. And then she said, "Okay, that's done." And I got my test result back, and it was negative. So,
dude, it's just like everybody just wants to penetrate us, huh?
I feel very much like this is a penetration-focused scheme.
Dude, literally through the nose, through the arm, for no reason, through our minds, through our eyes. It's just everywhere you turn is just a giant stick just jamming in somewhere,
God, what a wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah, think about it, guys. Big Daddy is forcing you to take it.
I'm being domed by my government. How wonderful. Perhaps we could have the lads from Dutch Immigration help me out. Oh dear.
I miss you, man. I'm glad you're back in town. Any remarks that you guys want to ask us, say? Any comments about penetrating conversations, wrong holes, whatever else?
There's a question that came through from Beatrice. She asked, Richard, what made you realise and want to stop making narcissism videos? If I wasn't clear enough in the video that I made, and I probably wasn't, I have known for a while, and I mean a couple of years, that a good number of people are just using the videos in the wrong way, and that it makes them sicker. And then different things happened recently where, I think we mentioned this in another tentacle question, where I'm having a weirdly high spike of people who are coming after me, who are probably erotomaniacs. They believe that I've been talking to them through the videos, that the videos have codes.
Is that the term, erotomania?
Erotomania, yeah, that's
interesting.
Most stalkers are erotomaniacs. So they internalize the object. They're like, well, Madonna's song released on this date, that was my ex-boyfriend's birthday. Yeah. And the third line of the first verse, she mentions me by name, and it's actually like 2 words. So that they'll find meaning, external meaning. It's a kind of psychosis. But I've had, I usually would get one every 3 to 6 months. And it's been scary in the past. I've had people come up to me at seminars. There's a story I told about a seminar where I thought I was going to get shot. There was a woman reaching into her bag at the end of the seminar with her eyes rolling in her head going, "There's something I have to show you that will stop time." And I was like, she's going to try and kill me. She actually she'd drawn diagrams from a dream that she had where me and her had sex in a jacuzzi, and I taught her in the dream how to stop time. And she had diagrams of it. Okay. And she was like, "Can I show you these diagrams?" And I was like, "You can, but for legal reasons, we should do this with other," because she waited to the end. I was on my own. We have to do this in front of other people. So I walked her to where the reception, it was in a Hilton, where there's security. I was legitimately scared. I was
like, Jesus Christ, man.
All the training in the world isn't going to stop me from somebody popping me with a 45 at 2 meters away. You're like, that's it, you're done. And then there was a couple of incidents when I publicly announced the office that I had in Liverpool, the Liverpool Science Park. We had a few incidents with people showing up there. So it usually would happen once every 3 to 6 months. Right now, there's 6 different people doing it at the same time.
Why do you think that is? Just the times?
I think it's the times we're going through. I think people feel very, very untethered, so they're looking to tether to something that they see as having meaning and order, to make the Jordan Peterson point, a Petersonian point. In some people's lives, I represent order. I represent something.
Well, you do,
meaning.
For sure you do.
Yeah, I'm phallic.
Yes,
nice and
the super
thick.
phallic.
I've got girth.
Penetrative.
I penetrate
Yes.
them. And something that only occurred to me in the last few months, based on the emails I was getting, people would say, I met you last night. You told me in bed. And I was like, what do they mean? But people, we take these things and we watch them in bed. It's really intimate. So we've got this one man or woman's voice and they're looking into the camera, so it feels like looking at you. And so basically I just started to think, okay, when somebody accuses me of something, because the accusations they made, yes, they're wild and they're crazy, but I did feel bad. And I'm like, well, why do I feel bad? If I was coaching somebody else, I'd say, why do you feel bad? Where's the guilt come from? And I did actually feel guilty about it, because I sort of thought, well, not that I'm asking for this, but that would be victim blaming. I'm not asking for this, but I am aware of the processes that lead people to this point.
Right.
And I know that a good percentage of the people I'm talking to are really not well. They can't get access to a clinician, which I am not. They can't get help, real mental health help, real, proper mental health help, which YouTube videos can never be. They're not real mental health help, they're guidance. And so I sort of thought, well, this echo chamber of narcissism provokes psychosis, and I think it can lead people over a long enough timeline into psychosis.
That goes with a lot of certain niches, especially the political spectrum.
Yes.
Just being in an echo chamber that has extremely emotionally loaded content in general, and repeating those notions can lead to people kind of veering off.
It depends on the reality you're creating. Like, if you're unemployed and you're at home and you have time to consume a lot of this stuff, and say you're on like pain medication or some medication for an illness you're carrying, and then you blame it on a political group or an online persona, like, I'm here stuck in this shit life because of the liberals, because of the conservatives, because of the libertarians, because of the whatever, politically speaking, then it becomes, the political really is personal. Like, this is happening to me.
Oh yeah, you are directly involved in the discourse, the conflict.
Yep.
The actual conversation that's happening,
which is sorry to then flip it on its head, that's narcissism. You put yourself in the center stage. You're like, I'm part of, Ronald Reagan's talking to me.
Right.
He's talking about my life. I'm a paying tax. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a voter. So you shove yourself center stage. So there's a narcissistic element to this where you people are riddled with ideas of reference. They think somebody's given them the weather forecast for LA, but they think it's an encoded message to them. These are ideas of reference. It's born of narcissism. Is it my fault? No. But am I, and have I been historically for the last 7 years careful not to induce that? No. Because I didn't even know it was a thing until about 3 years ago.
I was going to bring that up, actually. I think it's that stage of internet maturation, or deep into the BDSM dynamic of social media that we're just learning collectively now. We didn't know this was a thing even 3 years ago.
No.
You know, we're just... Dude, how could anyone blame you? You're making YouTube videos, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, that's what we think that we're all doing. We're just watching videos and we're just making videos. And no one could have ever expected the shit that you would see in The Social Dilemma that came out earlier this year.
Yeah.
That was blindsided. There was no way any of us could have predicted that.
And The Social Dilemma documentary is a good one, and it presents a really good case for how just through using social media, you will get radicalized. Things will polarize. So we've made this point before. It's worth making again. YouTube, as it's gotten more corporate and the money is bigger and you can make millions, and the corporations look at it going, we want a stake there. It's gotten really heavy, man. It used to be a place where you could just spitball crazy ideas. So now people are coming along and judging me by 2020 standards. They're looking at videos from 2014 and going, the fuck are you doing? This is a serious mental health issue. These people are victims.
Yeah.
And you're adding witchcraft and tarot to...
Before I forget, that you bring up such a good point that I just realized right now about this whole situation. When YouTube first started in social media, when someone was just spewing ideas or whatever, whether they're good or bad, it was always amongst the viewer to be like, oh, he's crazy. Oh, this is crazy. Yeah, just cat video, whatever. But now it's always blamed entirely on the creator. You have a responsibility to, when you're saying these ideas, are you not realizing that you are actually influencing this? That was not a thing when this whole YouTube thing, video creation thing started it wasn't like that even 3 years ago.
So you've got corporatism and wokeism sort of creating this perfect storm.
But it's interesting how all of that responsibility just
It's
simultaneously just
heat.
shifted purely on the creator, where before it was the viewers like, nah, fuck.
Which is a tactic. You know, it's a tactic. That's how you boil somebody and prepare them. You prepare the dish for cancellation. You heap responsibility on them that's not theirs.
Yeah.
And then you convince the people around you, she has responsibility. It's like, no, she's reading tarot cards for the victims of narcissistic abuse. That was cool in 2014. No, they're not. These are people are mentally fragile, and she knows that.
Exactly.
And she's getting
Right.
advertising revenue, so she's being paid.
Yes.
And she's and then so what we do is we go, no responsibility for me, all the responsibility for you.
Right.
Back to why I want to stop the narcissism videos, it does the same thing. It externalizes the locus of control. Now, there's a general tendency in culture to do that anyway. With the narcissism videos, it's like adding fuel to a fire. It's not my fault. None of this is my fault. I'm blameless. It's all the fault of this thing called the narcissist. And it's I hear it bandied, obviously it's my work, so I hear the phrase far too much. I hear it bandied about so much that it's meaningless now.
Yeah.
Now it means there's somebody I don't like.
Yeah.
They're
It's
not-
their fault for why I'm sad.
Yeah,
Or like
that's
angry
what it
and
means.
stuff.
So it's shorthand for I'm sad, it's their fault. That's what narcissism means, not to a psychiatrist, because it's a psychiatric term. It's what it means now in modern parlance. And I'm like, I can't do this. Now it's irresponsible.
Well,
now it would, because my eyes are wide open. I'm like, this is irresponsible.
Well, you were catching the visible tipping point of it. And I think when you were first starting this, even just 2 years ago, it wasn't like that. And then I think just now, it's a visible tipping point, especially with the circumstances too. You know, and like I've had to learn how to deal with my own platforms throughout the years too, of realizing what is sort of my fault, even though it's not really my fault. But at the same time, I'm the one still creating things, so I have to kind of keep that in mind. And, you know, I'll purposely, like, in a digital sense, you know, you had to take your fan to the security room or like somewhere in public.
Yep.
I purposely don't engage with DMs further than a few words, emojis, or I don't hold conversations just because I don't know where that goes nowadays. You know?
And the more you speak, the more responsibility
Exactly.
you have. I'm
Right.
even being held accountable for refusing to speak. So my
Right.
my silence is violence.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're
I'm
screwed.
like, what's the most responsible thing I can do? You're clearly not well. You're approaching me not well. The only thing I could do is send you a message saying, seek mental help.
Yeah.
Seek qualified mental health help. But that's an internet insult. I can say nothing. I can't say to you, there isn't a non-passive aggressive way of saying to somebody, you need help, go get it. It's always passive aggressive.
Yeah.
So I can say nothing. I just have to say, but even now for saying nothing.
Yeah.
There is an alternative that I've been thinking of that I want to float, and I might float this on the channel, which is if we'd only ever spoken in terms of emotional abuse and boundary pushing, everybody would be a lot healthier. The problem with narcissism is I'm not qualified, you're not qualified, nobody's qualified to say what it is, and even within psychiatry and psychology, it's not an agreed upon term. And so you'll always be stuck in the loop of needing a qualified person to tell you if it's real or if you're imagining it.
The validation.
Which is
right.
external. You need
Yeah. External validation.
External
yeah, that's right.
validation, which externalizes your locus of control. But had we always said, if we'd said emotional abuse, well, it's pretty easy to identify emotional abuse. Is this loving behavior? No. Is it nasty and bullying? Yes. Okay, we said it's emotional abuse. And if we talked in terms of boundaries, you wouldn't need a third person to tell you whether it's NPD or Jibobubula,
Yeah.
whatever the fucking magical word is. You just go, that's my boundary. I don't want you chatting to other women on Facebook or flirting with other guys on it, whatever the interpersonal relationship argument is. And I think that probably would have been more useful, even when we're talking family dynamics and parents to children, the narcissistic abuse of parents to children or in work. We should have always have been speaking about emotional abuse and respecting other people's boundaries. Narcissism is a fetish. It's a fetish in the Freudian sense. It's an external object imbued with magical power. And that's the core that's corrupting everything in the conversation about narcissism. And of course, frauds and charlatans thrive in that environment because it's based on magical thinking. Not that people weren't abused, not that they weren't hurt. I think you've been in authentically what you've told me. What would qualify in front of a psychiatrist, I suspect, as a narcissistically abusive relationship. I think I have been. But so what?
Right.
It doesn't actually fucking make any difference.
Right.
The relationship was uncomfortable. You got depressed and upset by it.
And the thing is, I got my answers, and that's it. And then I moved, and then I just went on. So
then there's that extra layer to all this, which is the culture is moving towards a victim culture. And who can win the oppression Olympics? Who's the biggest victim in the room? And that's another element that's throwing fuel on the fire. Now I hear right-wing voices saying that the term gaslighting is a wokeist term to use. And I'm like, oh shit, have I helped with that? Have I helped propagate terms like gaslighting?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this concept that you brought up first in that video of like, how do we, let's just say, divide that responsibility between an apparent creator and its consumption, because like it shouldn't be just all on us when we say something, I mean, obviously it's not going to be extremist nonsense like drawing swastikas everywhere, but like just making content the way you do, the way I do. And how much responsibility is it really on the creator, and how much is it really with the viewers as well? Because you shouldn't be unable to say the word gaslighting because now a bunch of people reappropriated the word in their own fucking way. So like, how do we even solidify where and what it's supposed to be?
So I think with this one, you can't win.
Yeah.
You just have to not play the game.
Right.
It's a great question to ask that you've asked, which is, how do we pass the responsibility? Is it mine? Is it yours? These are boundary issues. And that's what everybody's struggling with. They're struggling with boundaries. But it's easier to say, no, I'm struggling with narcissism. No, you're struggling with boundaries. Yes, in one reality tunnel, I think I could sit with qualified mental health professionals, tell them what happened, and they would say, yes, Richard, you get the mark, the stamp that says you were actually the victim of narcissistic abuse. But so what? I had weak boundaries then, and until I deal with my boundary issues, not that girl or this girl's boundary issues, she just pushed it as far as she could. People say this is victim blaming. It wasn't my fault, but functionally in the system, if I want that to stop, which I do, I have to deal with my boundary issues. Nobody's going to do it for me. We're not going to eradicate predators and predatory people from the world. We don't live in Narnia.
Okay. So to simplify what you just said there, you're basically saying that where the responsibility is divided, the most practical answer to absolve the situation is for you to just hands off. Because regardless, even though it's not technically all your responsibility that other people are diverting your content to their own toxic means, the most practical notion, even if it is your fault or not, is to just take your foot off the gas.
Oh, so again, so before you said we've got to pass, the job is to pass where the responsibility is. Perfect question. There's another really good question, which was not one you said, but I'm gonna refine what you said. Is it better to look at whose responsibility it is, or is it better to look at what works?
Yes.
There you
That's
go.
what I wanted to
there
say.
There you go.
Yes.
Now
exactly.
that's a question we can ask about narcissism, abusive relationships, and where culture is up to now.
Right.
We're obsessed with blame. We're obsessed with responsibility and heaping it on other people. And the collective seems to be fighting like hell to absolve themselves of all responsibility.
Yeah, but what actually works?
Yeah, what works
is the question.
Is a much better question. So on that video, I was accused of victim blaming. And I answered a few people and I said, so if I say to people there's something you can do to not get hurt, you're telling me that's victim blaming. That means that in principle, you should hate people who teach self-defense classes, because the self-defense class is effectively preemptive victim blaming. You should hate standing armies. You should hate and be opposed to the idea that if somebody has nuclear weapons pointed at our country, we have weapons that shoot them out the sky. Because you're utopians who believe in Narnia.
If everyone just did it.
If everybody just put the weapons down and was nice to each other, we wouldn't need this, Pierre.
If everyone was just perfect, it would be perfect.
If everyone was perfect, they would be perfect. And there is another really key point, which is purity and perfection. And I wanted to say this to you before. As far as content is concerned, if you go along this line, your content is never pure enough. It can't be. So you keep cleaning your content and clean it. I'm going to take out all the ableism. I'm going to take out all the assumptions. I'm going to take out every shred of prejudice. Okay, so now you have completely boring, totally anesthetized content.
And that's exactly what a hypothetical fascist communistic environment is, with gray concrete monologues and state government housing where everything looks the same. And that's what the content will look like if we further down this route.
So when people talk about post-humanism, I would say this is one of the symptoms of it, is you drain the humanity, because the imperfection is what makes people human. Like, your imperfections are the grit, and the bumps is what's funny, is what's endearing, is what makes us human. And nobody's pure enough. Back to the narcissism thing, let him without sin cast the first stone. So you're completely pure of narcissism, are you? You have no narcissism. You were never mean in an argument. You never gaslit anybody. You never love bombed anybody. Because I look at some of these things and I'm like, in the beginning of a relationship, love bombing is what people...
Yeah, and it's not even intentional. It's not conscious.
It's not necessarily, and now, people split up with each other and they don't talk to each other anymore. Oh, it's a discard. I'm like, really? Did you just split up?
And to further down this route of existential nihilism here, when you previously would consistently warn, you and your crazy conspiracy warnings that somehow actually become true months down the line, let me tell you, yours was you believed that the psychological space, the psychology space would start getting attacked.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful with your channel. And let me tell you, I just released a video recently, and it covers this girl, Eugenia Cooney, with eating disorder, hot button topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
And where this ties in, I originally wanted to make that video about the psychologist that talks to her, but I just kind of that's not the message I'm trying to get across. Let's talk about boundaries instead. So what happened is this YouTube psychologist ended up talking to Eugenia, the girl with the eating disorder. She was in a documentary with Shane Dawson too. You remember him? Mm-hmm. And basically, people are attacking the psychologist now for a multitude of reasons. One of them was Eugenia just came out of rehab, and she invited her to her show, to her psychology podcast a month in, and that's not enough time to recover, so we can't. She should have been more wary of it. Another one was, when the psychologist was listening to her, she kept nodding, so she was enabling.
Wonderful. I love that.
So
yeah.
So
your offer of help to somebody in distress was patronizing and
Yes.
ableist, because you were saying that in the power dynamic you were more powerful than them. Fuck you, you evil narcissist.
So I was like, I'm never shaking my head or never nodding my head yes if you're doing it right now. You're enabling me.
I'm enabling you.
And
I want to help you because I'm just evil like that.
The argument was the Eugenia was actually lying about hanging out with friends. So as the psychologist was nodding, they were angry at the psychologist for not further questioning that thing. And it's like, you're supposed to just question. Like, if you told me you went to the gym with a friend the other day, are you sure? Who was that? So at this point, I'm literally neutrally trying to just observe what this psychologist did wrong. And here's the thing. If you're going to a psychologist and they're lecturing you how to live your life word by word, they're not a psychologist. They're supposed to guide you in a neutral form, not like...
They're not priests.
Yeah.
And even priests aren't trained to...
It's like, what do you expect this poor fucking lady to do? No nodding, no facial expressions, and you have to say, you should start eating more. Like, dude, what?
If she didn't nod and she had no facial expressions, they would accuse her of withholding and being aloof.
Yes.
So you can't win. Now, people say that I sound like a right-wing conspiracy theorist when I talk about communism. Let me say this again. Nobody will ever be pure enough. We will all fail the orthodoxy test. This is... In fact, this is what happens in the late stages of communism before it inevitably collapses. Look at the Khmer Rouge. In the end, nobody was pure of the crime of being a bourgeois intellectual. It's a snake that eats its own tail or disappears up its own arsehole, whichever metaphor you prefer the most, because everybody fails the purity test because nobody's perfecto, kids. Everyone. The people who are in the firing squad, the judge, jury, and executioner today, they will be guilty of tomorrow's crimes because the goalposts have to shift. Right. It's a slippery slope.
Yes, exactly. And to bring it back to the situation, the biggest twist of irony is that people were first really angry at Eugenia for not getting help and no one going to help her. Now that there is an actual psychologist with credentials that goes to see her in person,
that's nice.
That's wrong. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah. So, again, to further back your point, everyone will fail the giant pop quiz of culture. You will always have the wrong answer.
Is there in meme terms, in internet speak, is there an equivalent of a female edgelord?
Yeah, female edgelord.
There is. I'd just like to point out, I've seen in the psychology spaces there are girls, usually from privileged backgrounds, probably they may even have psychology degrees. They claim ownership of mental health issues and then they defend it like it's a territory and it's their identity. This is not healthy and it doesn't help people to recover. Yeah. That shows that the primary focus is not helping people recover, but in defending an identity when you're making accusations like this. And I'm not saying it's all girls that do it, but I have seen girls of a certain age, a certain background, a certain class, they defend this territory vociferously online. It's like if they've been diagnosed with an eating disorder, that's theirs. You don't get to talk about it. They're diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, that's theirs. You don't get to talk about it. What's the point? Right. Like, what are you trying to do? Part of all of this is we lack a struggle. And we're all like people are middle class, privileged people feel guilty because they know they've been given too much and that their brothers and sisters in humanity are suffering as a direct result, and they want to struggle.
Right. And another layer with all that, which ties into personal experiences with you and me on our platforms too, is the argument. I'm literally watching this commentary video for like, what is it that the psychologist did wrong? Another one was this YouTuber put out like a 17-minute long hit piece on her, and then the psychologist copyright striked it.
Right.
No. You can't copyright strike another video using your own content and basically smearing you.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed on YouTube to stop smear campaigns if they use your image or they use your name. Like I have videos out now saying that I'm a sexual predator.
Yeah.
And I've complained multiple times to YouTube, and they're like, well.
Yes, and the argument.
It's allowed.
The argument is, from the video that I watched, was like, if I'm making YouTube content and I'm doing something wrong, I would allow criticism, not just copyright strike. And I think it's really irresponsible that, the copyright strike the video that criticizes you and da-da-da-da. And I know for a goddamn fact, if I was thinking, I'm going to make a hit piece on that person right now. and like...
See how they respond.
Yeah, and I will do it hard, just to say like, okay... Yeah. Are you fine with this being this cool? Out there? Is this cool to you now? Because a lot of these, whatever, commentary channels, I mean, I'm considered one too, they don't really get the thing to them.
Yeah.
And they're thinking that you're supposed to allow every criticism to everyone. And I'm going to say, some people do deserve the criticism because sometimes it is true. And some people have done some fucked up shit. There are actual YouTubers that are really terrible people. But at the same time, it's like, are we all just expected to just sit and take it?
Well, you can criticize somebody without falling to logical fallacy. And that's why, I have fallings out with people online, and I'll delete their comments and they'll say, this is against freedom of speech. And I'll be like, listen, if you don't want to get deleted, criticize me without logical fallacy. The two biggest ones that everybody uses are ad hominem. You start criticizing the person's character instead of what they've actually done or said. That's a logical fallacy. It's outside the rules of debate. It's outside the rules of criticism. And the other one is straw man. You're telling me I'm saying things that I've never said and never would say. That's trolling. That's not a legitimate criticism. You've got to clean up how you do these things. And I honestly don't know that YouTube, I wouldn't encourage people to make hit pieces on each other and criticize each other on YouTube. I don't think it's a useful thing to be doing. If it's mental health and we want to help people, let's focus on helping people. What's the point in saying, oh, this psychologist sucks, this life coach said this? Like, who are you helping? The only thing you're doing is training people to consume more toxic content. And yes, they want that, and they are enjoying it in a way, but you're not doing any good in the world. You're not raising the vibration by doing that. You're just being a little bitch.
A little bitch. But yeah, man, you dipped out of the psychology space before the Gestapo tried to get to
it's gonna get nasty. It's You know what? With wokeism and cancel culture, it won't just be online. Psychology as a way of getting things done.
They're shifting some terms around, and
it will be eradicated. Psychology itself will be a snake that eats its own tail. Psychology, not soon, but within our lifetimes, will either be eradicated or will be significantly changed.
That's it, man. So how you feeling? You checking the time? You gotta go. You gotta do some questions. How you feeling?
Let's take a couple of questions. I have a supermarket delivery in about 20 minutes.
Hell yeah! So if you guys got questions, type in, and then if you have some commentary, do that too. I gotta go pee again. I've been hydrating, man. I got this giant water bottle. Look at that.
He loves pee.
Yo, I love pee, man. You know what's crazy is like, I would like limit my water bottle choices to the ones that keep it cold or hot, and I went to an analog water bottle. And it's great.
It's an analog water
big.
bottle? It is big.
Ask some questions. Goodbye.
Make them one sentence long, have them end in a question mark. Before you know it, you'll probably be answering your own questions. Question, says Alexandra, how will psychology change? Psychology, if you look at psychology, if you look at what psychology is and what it does, it's so anti-wokeism, even though the culture of psychology tends to be liberal and psychologists tend to be woke themselves. The actual process is anti-woke. To give you the quickest way of saying this, there's a woman online. I'd love to interview her sometime. Her name is Helen Pluckrose. Helen Pluckrose. She does a wonderful speech where she compares CBT to wokeism and basically says that they're oppositional ideologies, where CBT encourages stoicism, the responsibility of the individual, taking practical action, so on and so forth. It's like an antithesis. Because CBT is kind of, I would argue, psychology condensed, CBT is a pretty good culmination, middle of the road. I don't mean that dismissively. It's the culmination of what counseling and psychology is, generally speaking. It has to be cancelled because it fails the purity test of wokeism in so many ways.
Oh, on a podcast, one line really stuck out to me, and it's that the field of science and psychology and those fields in general has something to offend everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why that field particularly will be attacked, because you will find something that you won't agree with, but that's what the research says.
Well, apparently there was a hashtag cancel science trended on Twitter this year during the riots. Hashtag cancel science.
Nice.
Well done, humanity. Oh, thanks, moderators, all our moderators.
Yeah, thank you for the moderators. It's been a wild time. You guys have been working overtime.
Do you think Gordon Newfield's ideas about the negative effects on children of the loss of attachment bonds to adults and replacement with peer bonds could be influencing how adults interact?
Thanks, Maria.
I'm not familiar with that work, so it would be wrong of me to comment on it without reading it first.
What resources do you guys follow to keep your pulse on the truth? Is there a way to know for sure what the truth is right now? In my case, I always attempt to widen my breadth of information. So it's not just one particular person that is subscribed to one particular viewpoint. A lot of the people that I would come across are not known to be extremist in one way or another. When they start throwing too many buzzwords around, I'm done. And I'll go to find other information. So I kind of have to weigh it out myself, if that makes sense. What about you?
I don't go anymore looking for the truth. The content I would consume would be from people who are clearly practicing critical thinking and trying to stay rational.
Yeah.
The truth, I mean, it's like in a post-truth era right now. I want to be able to think. I want to be able to come to my own conclusions. So I'll consume material by content makers who are clearly doing that themselves and respect their audience to do that for themselves. I like to be spoken to as an adult. I like to be treated like an adult. So yeah.
And also, in the end, what do you do with that information, whether it's true or not, from now on? Like, I mean, I'm playing video games instead because it's like, I have the information now. Now what? I don't know.
Bobby says, what's the best way to sincerely suggest somebody they would benefit from therapy without breaking boundaries and seeming to...
Oh, that's a good
yourself?
question, man. Would you even bother?
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't even bother. Huh?
I never have. And people try and start psychology conversations with me who need therapy, and I just.
Yeah, because that, no matter what, that is boundary breaking. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and therapy is such an intimate thing, and it's such a big choice for a human being to make in their lives. I don't believe there is a good way of suggesting it.
What if you just talked about how much it benefited you in like a passive hinting way? Would that work?
Yeah, and you could say, I'm going to therapy, I'm doing this and that. Some people are never going to go, and if they do go, they're not going to have the experience that you have. It's like when people say to me, "Oh, I'm recommending your YouTube channel to my friends," and I'm like, "Don't do that. That won't end well. Your subjective experience of me will not be their subjective experience of me."
How do you see the political climate shifting? I feel uncomfortable with far right counterculture sweeping in, far left and right. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
It's both.
As people panic, will swing. The temptation will be to swing to the extremes. Again, this is externalizing locus of control. We'll abrogate responsibility by joining groups who seem to be doing something for us, and this is the wrong way to go. This is absolutely the wrong way to go. But solutions will be individual.
Technically, that's the answer. That is the philosophy of if everyone just did it playing out. Is like join a party because everyone's doing it too.
Yeah. Going with the flow, going with what everybody else is doing. It's funny, don't you remember just like 10 years ago how politically apathetic everybody was?
Yeah, no one gave a fuck,
Nobody
dude.
gave a fuck.
Dude, my parents never thought about politics when I lived in their fucking house for 20-something years, and now they're telling me of what they've researched or found out, man. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Everything is politicized.
Yeah. This is a good question. Do you watch any spiritual channels? Which one do you recommend, or books?
Well, I was actually going to suggest today that we talk about spirituality and religion. We went in another direction. I don't consume an awful lot of religious or spiritual stuff.
Same.
But my mind is on the subject every day. I actually wrote notes for this session, which we didn't get into.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was going to say, we are religious creatures, behave religiously. I've said in previous tentacle questions we can't do that because it's a postmodern age and we know it's fake. Do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Do what anyway?
Whatever your religious practice might be, pray, meditate, chant,
right.
Whatever ritual, whatever thing. Just act as though you are religious and spiritual personally, individually. You're not going to be one of those people who's going to try and convert others. Leave everybody else alone. But do engage religiously, spiritually in your own life as though you believe. There's still an awful lot of... it's very self-soothing, and that's what these things replace. We're trying to soothe ourselves with these things. It's funny, when you click them, if you leave the sound on, they make sounds like prayer beads. You know, people have these, they go click,
yeah,
click, 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 click.
Interesting.
So we should probably put these down and just get some prayer beads.
Or you can go my route, which is super unhealthy, and get 4 monitors and get a gaming laptop. Yeah, all corners.
All corners.
There was a good one. Is there a way to pursue one's own agenda and not get involved in the current ideology wars while staying socially connected? Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Depends on your agenda, Maria. Depends on what your agenda is. If you have a very clear intent for your agenda, I suspect yes. But in clarifying the intent for your agenda, you might see this. You're obviously in a. It sounds to me as I'm reading your question, I could be getting it wrong, that you perceive there to be barriers there. As you clarify your intent and purify it, those barriers may dissolve.
Find what's fun for you in the meantime. I mean, don't just dive down to the ladder of hedonism, but it helps to know what you do for fun, because having fun in these times is actually an essential service, if anything.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see the real value of that. Comedy and fun in these times is really important, man.
Do what you love. When I'm saying engaging religiously and spiritually, it shouldn't be dour. It should be life affirming, and it should reconnect you with all that is, and it should feel good. I would want it for you to have a good time with that. Have a good time.
How do you stay feeling authentic when you can't speak or opinions as people get aggressive? My not suggestion, but the way I look at it is I can still be authentic without sharing a political opinion. That's how I would like to go about it. I can talk about my favorite foods and maybe ask people, how would they ever skydive one day, or some along the lines of that. But what about you, man?
Conversation should be illegal because words are an act of aggression. When you speak English, you're speaking the language of colonizers, slave owners, rapists, and thieves, and empire builders. And to say words is an oppressive act because you're saying that which is. So when you say words and you penetrate somebody's ear with your words, you're kind of psychologically dominating them. So conversation should be banned.
And also remember, if you don't say anything, you are also dominating them.
Yeah, you're complicit in their abuse by others who are speaking to them, and you not saying anything means that you're just, it's tantamount to you committing the crime yourself. You're just wrong, okay?
Take it.
You're wrong. There's nothing you can do. You'll never be pure. There's no absolution in this new religious system. In the old one, you could do things. You could pray. You could walk on your knees to Bethlehem, or they do this practice in Portugal. They'd walk on their knees on rocky ground and bleed and beat themselves, and then they'd be pure after all the suffering. No, we don't have that.
Yeah.
We just have infinite sin, a boot stamping on a human face.
Forever.
This is an interesting one because I think we have very contrasting ideas with this. Do you think philosophy will survive the transhumanist future? Transhumanism is the integration with technology in our human bodies in a technologically infused world.
I think in a truly transhuman world, philosophy would be redundant. Paulo Adrio says, I'm Portuguese. Where's the place in Portugal where you can go and you walk on your knees as like a holy mission to cleanse yourself? Yeah, transhumanist world, you won't need philosophy, I don't think.
I'm already basically transhumanist. The technology is integrated in every part of my life, but it's in a way that is Matrix-like. I don't know. I feel like I'm like plugged in for a purpose. Does that sound weird? It sounds weird. I like it.
No, it makes sense that you're half in, half out.
Yeah.
You've let it penetrate you, you've penetrated it, but just halfway.
It's equal.
You're dabbling.
Equal penetration.
You're like half cyborg.
Yes.
Just to let us know what it's like over there.
But yeah, because, I mean, I guess that's how I know where my place is. I feel better sneaking in a thumb drive into the back part of everyone's medulla without even seeing it. You know what I mean? You like that?
Oh, yes, I do. That thumb drive can get a little tight.
It'd be like, and they just get hacked. They don't even know who did it.
I have the weirdest boner right now. I'm going to play this back later in a dark room on my own.
You ain't the only one.
Paolo said Fatima is the place of pilgrimage.
Okay.
Muito obrigado, Paolo. Muito obrigado.
Like a
Appreciate
sniper,
that.
dude.
Yep. Like a sniper. with a particularly small rifle.
Oh,
in
you
my
want?
case.
So you want to hear my transhumanist idea right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a virtual bar, and
Oh,
it started off unintentionally yesterday. I found a picture of a bar, and I can put myself behind the bar, and I got these emojis of beer and stuff, and anybody who wants a drink, I can serve them the drink. And now I'm getting an animator. It's happening, guys. I'm getting an animator to illustrate my own virtual bar with own virtual drinks.
That's a cool idea. That's a very
It's
cool
fucking
idea.
fun.
Especially during lockdown. That means we can all get together and have ourselves a little virtual drink.
But see, that's my perspective on the whole transhumanist thing. Is
Right.
like, some people can unplug completely, but I'm like, how do I integrate more human elements through this dystopian technology? And the best way in my head is like, what if we did a conversational thing, such as being in a bar like that, but it's virtual? It won't be the same, but it's getting there.
Using technology to promote connectivity. Interesting. Is that transhumanism, folks?
I
Are
don't
you
know.
using transhumanism to oppose transhumanism? I'm not sure.
I don't know what it is. Gluten-free cyber beer. Are you trying to simulate more and more? Well, I guess it's just through necessity at this point. You know, I mean, like, we literally can't go to bars and have just chats and do whatever the hell else. So I'm going to do the next best thing. Yum, 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 yum.
Ooh, book recommendations. Yes, I have a book that I'm going to give to Pierre by Dan Carlin, who does hardcore history. And it's called something like We're Always in the Apocalypse or We're Always at the End of the World.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, that sounds cool.
Really, really cool book. It's nice. I highly recommend it. The other one I'm reading is called The Power of When, where you figure out what your chronotype is for eating, sex, sleeping, drinking caffeine, and how you organize your life. Both excellent books I highly recommend.
To close it out, did you know? Did we talk about this in the last one? I don't know, but Rogan posted an image of an article that in Trump's COVID-19 bill, there's a 180-day UFO disclosure clause.
Oh, you mentioned this in the last episode.
Yeah, we talked about this. Oh shit. Okay, we already talked about it.
Do you think that we're on the verge of full disclosure of aliens?
We had a whole hour of this. I don't know why I forgot. But, I mean, it's way more entertaining to think that that's the reason for everything. So.
Well, we're bloody deprived of meaning at the moment, aren't we? That would be nice.
All hail the aliens, man.
I think being
Our
told,
new gods.
Yeah, where an Anunnaki experiment gone wrong, we'd be like, oh, thank God.
It's just that these makes. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, it would at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would give like a full Gnostic reasoning to life on Earth and why it plays out the way it does. Or anything would be better than zero story, just sitting inside watching progressively shitty Netflix shows. Did you ever watch Orange is the New Black?
I know of it, but I haven't seen it. No.
Oh, dear me.
Was it
Got
good?
through 3 series, really liked it. Got onto series 4 and I was like, what are they doing? It's like they're deconstructing everything that was good about this program. Poop. It's all a load of poopity poop.
That's
poop.
what happens with all of them, though.
It starts out good though. It's worth a go. Orange is the New Black is-
Did you check out Altered Carbon at all, or was that not for you?
I think I
first
think I watched the first season.
Oh, that's
I
cool,
like
man.
that chap.
The main actor?
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Dude, he's
quite-
great.
Quite like him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hot.
It's good, man. He looked like that Dutch guy, huh?
He looked like that Dutch guy, all tall.
You still thinking about him?
think
You didn't
he's-
go fly to Amsterdam again.
I think he's Swedish. I think I can get what I want either in Sweden or
Okay.
in Holland.
Good to know, man. Good luck if you're getting there. What a great thing to close this whole fucking thing off. Can we finish off on one more question?
Oh, I'll finish off.
Oh, my
yeah.
Jesus. There it is. Is it possible that a new world religion can emerge, or would old ones gain more importance? Ooh.
I mean, we certainly need one.
Yeah.
I don't think we can naively do religion anymore. I think if a new political party came out, it could be followed with religious zeal. But the new political, say it was the Jordan Peterson party, and you had you need daily disciplines and daily practices for it to effectively function as a religion. It needs its own words, its own way of doing things, and a full ideology. He could form a kind of a church of bed making responsibility takers.
Yeah, the Jordan Peterson thing is like a practical religion, right? And the New Age shit, that thing's bigger than ever. You know, you just replace God with the universe, you get the same thing.
I do think we need religion. I do think there's a spirituality-shaped hole in all of our lives. And I think that we should just embrace that. Don't wait for somebody else to create it. Make your own religion that's as unique to you as your own thumbprint, and live religiously. Get out of culture, get out of the flow. There is a flow pushing you hard in one direction. You really must fight to escape that river of sewage and get out of it. However you can, meditation, walks in nature, playing video games, you know, whatever it takes to disconnect from that, do it and enjoy it, and don't fall for this crap.
I think the bottom line, I think the best thing to do in this time is just to find something that gets you away from the mainstream narrative. That's pretty much it.
The mainstream narrative has now become fucking poison.
It's
irredeemable poison.
If you follow any of that, it will only do you harm. Whether if you want to sew, meditate, walk in nature, play video games, I think it's just better for everyone to really not even keep an eye on it at this point. It's not helping anybody. I mean, we know what happened fucking 6 months ago. I mean, now it's just like better to just chill the fuck out.
Stay in this reality, your reality. Your reality is the real reality, not that reality, not us on your screen. Reality doesn't come from screens. Reality comes from you, your body, your socks, in the moment, breathing in and breathing out.
In the virtual reality prawn. Guys, it's been a pleasure, everyone. Send some roses to Mr. Grannon for being back in Praha. A lovely person to be around. I'm really bummed that you didn't bring the Dutch guy around. I would have loved to meet him.
There's a whole team of them. It was wonderful.
Welcome back to Praha, my friend, and close us out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for your time and your attention. These are the two most precious currencies you have. There are no refunds on them. Please spend them wisely over the next week before we speak to you again next Wednesday. Thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
See ya.